I don't know what this means.
Carriers, the carrier's new enemy. So basically, with the new government, we've got Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, right? They've got the new Doge, right? What's it stand for again?
Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, Department of Government Efficiency. I can't find the article, man. But basically, what they talked about. Well, here we can talk about it. You tell me what you think. So basically, the argument is the new enemy of aircraft carriers is basically our own government, Doge, right? So they're all looking about. We talked about it. They're looking at ways to make the government more efficient. We're tired of wasting money, squandering money. So they're looking at the fact that, hey, our carriers basically obsolete, right? They're slow. They're big. Can we actually defend them in a real shooting war against a worthy adversary? And can we take that money? Because I can't remember how much the new carriers cost, but it's in the billions. Can we take that money, put it somewhere else where it's going to make, our military more lethal? So the new enemy is basically, I guess, the bean counters, right, in the military, taking a look at, hey, do we still need these things? So the argument is, well, China's building them, so they still think, they're good. And, I'd argue China is rapidly developing their naval air forces. So will the carrier programs get cut? The other question is, how many carriers do you need? We operate by far the highest number of super carriers in the entire world. Nobody else even comes close. And we have a complement of smaller flat tops. We have, the Marines wanted the vertical takeoff one. So, we have fighters on smaller ships. So, the argument is like, how many billions and billions and billions of dollars do we need to put into these carriers? So, their own cost, might be their downfall. As an Air Force guy, Mover, what do you think? As far as like,
we got it. We don't even need a Navy. Whole thing can be handled with the Air Force.
That's not true, but continue.
Yeah, we don't need any of them. Yeah, well, if anything, we don't need the Marines having aviation. What are you talking about? They don't need their own boats.
Yeah, hit your ride with the Air Force, dude, like you do with the Navy.
We'll throw you out the back of a C-17. What's your question? Why do you need your own boats?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't think it's going anywhere. Especially the great... Dude, I'm such a nerd now talking about great power competition. But the great power competition, as it is seen in the South China Sea, China, as you pointed out, is ramping up their ability to project power outside of their initial sphere of influence. I wrote this in a paper. That's how I know these things. It's awful.
Yeah, it is awful. Continue.
But no, they are, they believe they have sovereign rights to the islands in South China Sea and many areas out there. And they believe that is the gateway to their own defense. And as such, to defend that gateway, they are pushing out farther and farther to try to, it's basically creating this defense zone. And the only way they can do that is through force projection, because that's the way we do it. And so if we are going to match that threat and defend interests in the region, which whether it's Taiwan, whether it's Philippines, whatever's over there, if we are going to, or Japan, if our goal is to maintain a show of presence and a show of force, the only way you're going to really do that initially is with a carrier strike group that you can rapidly deploy in a short amount of time. Because as much as I hate to admit it, the fastest force projection we have is a carrier strike group. Are they battle groups or strike groups now? I can't keep up. They always change the name. It used to be carrier battle groups. Yeah. We can also force project against ourselves with these carrier strike groups, which is frowned upon. So we have to weigh the pros and cons. But too soon.
Yes, we can.
That was a show of force by itself.
Correct.
Speaking of which, this is kind of a non sequitur. I saw an article that it was like 400 missiles or something. Remember I sent that to you? We should have talked about it.
Oh, yeah, that was
how many missiles that they shot.
Yeah,
the SM2s and all that
they shot them all.
Yeah. So we've demonstrated, basically our capabilities just by fighting the Houthis. But And so I guess that's the argument, right? In the GPC, great power competition with near peer or peer adversaries, we need it. Situations where we're wasting money shooting 400 missiles to keep the carrier safe against, $10,000 drones or $5,000 drones or whatever they are. They're not the little quadcopters, but they're still cheap drones, relatively speaking, than a $2 million missile. Where we're wasting, $1 billion worth of missiles to protect the carrier strike group in the Red Sea. That is an argument for maybe that's not the right answer because it didn't have the desired effect, which was, take out that capability. We basically just parked a carrier strike group and then swatted missiles coming at ourselves versus using that project power to stop the threat permanently.
Yeah.
But that's a policy question. That is not, that is not a carrier strike group thing, but it does show in the world of drones how vulnerable they can be and how much it costs to defend them.
Yeah, I think a carrier is just like any weapon. It has its place. And I really do think it's vital for the US Navy to have a strong carrier force. I don't know how many carriers that involves, but I would disagree with anybody that says we don't need carriers because, like you said, Mover, we don't need to ask anybody, to park 5 acres, off the coast. Right now, they can shoot at you, but it is the fastest way to project power, and sometimes just the presence is all you need to keep the shooting from starting, which is also good.
The only thing I can think of that may make it start becoming obsolete is space.
Yeah.
As we move towards space, and that's that's an ethical argument, and there's a lot to space. Elon's talked about all the debris up there, Jared talked about it, but Elon's talked about it too, about there's so many satellites, so much debris, space lanes, lanes of travel between, eventually the space station and the moon, space station and Mars and stuff like that, but also space-based weaponry. When you start developing, because look at some of these ICBMs, that's basically what they do. They go up to space, they separate, and then they're different payloads. But if you started in space, well, you could park that anywhere. You can maneuver that, in which case now it's space warfare. But even if that exists, you still have the age-old problem that will always exist, which is in order to maintain response and a presence, you have to have physical boots on the ground. You will never, and even then, we've seen in the desert how that works out, because an asymmetric threat and a political appetite against, total warfare can put us in a place where we're just going to take casualties.
Yeah. We'll find out. We'll find out, if the carrier survives. Like anything, I'm not too naive or ignorant to think that it's going to be forever, because, if you study the history of the carrier, right back when they first came on the scene, all the admirals were like battleships, air power is just it's a show, right? And then
I think that article you were talking about talked about a transition to space. About whether it was the NGAD thing. It was the NGAD article, and they talked about whether we would eventually transition to more space or 6th-gen fighters and stuff like that. And I think, was it Secretary Kendall on his way out was talking about?
Well, space. He said he was going to let the next guy deal with that. So, but it's still.
And the next guy is it was a tanker nav, and his undersecretary is a space guy.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
We will.